So here we go. Here we go. So thank you everybody for joining us. I am thrilled to introduce Michael Goodman today. I've known Michael for many years and he's been my sales coach from time to time. When I find myself in a sales pickle, I call Michael. So, got a little bit of a recording there.
There's some echoing, Connie.
Yes, so okay, somebody took care of that. Yes, and so as we know in every industry, economics, stocks, etc., there are fundamentals. And I notice Michael, he always keeps in mind the fundamentals, even though sales is changing, there's more things for salespeople, but to always remember the fundamentals. So you can ask questions in the chat, create some conversation in the chat. Jacob is really good at that. I always find him a welcome guest. And Michael, please take it from here.
I discovered I was on mute.
There you are.
Sometimes I think that's a gift when there's a mute button for Michael.
Yes.
How is everybody this morning? Are we good? Are we chipper? I love seeing hand claps. Christopher, I love seeing your hand claps also, but all I see is your photograph, so you weren't moving very much. But it's okay. We punt. In the world of sales, you got to be flexible. We are some of the most flexible and in the present moment people you will ever meet. Is that fair? Come on. All of us have done sales at one time or another, right? And we have to be present sometimes.
Yes.
Well, Connie asked me to do this presentation. I've been really looking forward to it. I have done it in a similar vein before, and I'm looking forward to doing this. I've adjusted it for our purpose, and I'm going to share my screen. So if anything goes awry, will you send me a chat message so I can make sure that I've got you where it works best?
Yes, and Michael, I'm hearing a little bit of that buzz started back.
Okay, tell me if that helps better.
It didn't. It went away and now it came back.
I wish there was something more I could do, but I don't know that there really is here.
Okay, so we'll just do our best. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I may need privilege to share my screen.
Oh dear.
All right.
You
Okay.
got it?
I'm working on it. Give me one more second. Are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes, there you go.
Yay, and we'll make it large. There we go. All right. Here's the thing. This program is designed to help us build our revenue with dignity and ease. And how many of us want to be in a place of dignity and ease and grace and gratitude when we talk to people about revenue? This is where everybody raises their hand. Nice job. Okay. Thank you, Andrea. I can only see Andrea and Connie in the screen that I'm looking at right now, and we're just going to keep moving. This program could use up the whole hour, so I'm going to go move really fast, and I know that these are available on the Global Chamber YouTube channel at the end. And before we end, I will give you my email address. There is companion information, and I want you to have it available. So if you can grab a piece of paper, I'll give it to you right now, too. My best email address is michael@revenuekinetics.com. Revenue Kinetics is on every slide at the bottom right. michael@revenuekinetics.com. And I have some gifts and whatnot for you. Let's get going. Are we ready? I built this presentation on the fundamentals Connie talked about. Years ago, I created this as part of a curriculum for learning, and I called it the Solomon Sales System because I thought Solomon was one of the wisest guys ever, and I wanted to pretend I was that smart. And that guy, Solomon, wrote most of the Proverbs in the Old Testament. I thought, well, I'm going to write Proverbs, and at the time, Twitter would give me 144 characters, so I must have written about 1,000 different Proverbs on sales that were 144 characters. We're going to touch 3 of them. The first one is this: all of sales is a return on investment equation. The sale happens when the buyer's perception of value exceeds the investment. And really what that means when in the buyer's mind, what's in it for me, what they want out of the investment is greater than the risk that they have to take to get it, then the return drops to the bottom, the sale happens in their mind. We may never see it happen, but that's when the decision gets made. And what's in it for me could be any number of things, but they're all things that are important to that prospect, not us. So we have to be very cognizant that when we talk to them, we're listening for what's important to them. Risk can be anything from money to how much time does it take to implement, to will this make me look stupid, will I be a winner in my company, any number of things going on in the buyer's mind. So that's one of the 3 proverbs. The second one is this: every relationship in the world is dependent on 3 things: trust, credibility, and interest or value. See, here's the thing. We can't sell anything to a brick building or a company. We sell to people. And to sell to a people, we have to have a relationship with them. And every relationship in the world is dependent on trust, credibility, and interest. We must build trust, foster credibility, and discover interest or value. They're interchangeable words for a purpose. We have to build trust, foster credibility, and that lives in the O of the ROI equation. Trust and credibility live in the O because in the beginning of every relationship, it's an investment they have to make in us. They don't know us, they don't trust us, and a lot of people have a negative disposition towards salespeople. I know that's shocking to me too, but they do. And so our job is to make sure that we build trust and credibility first before they will give us much information about what's valuable or interesting to them. The I in the ROI equation drops right to the return side of the equation. When there's value, when they can get the value, we're trustworthy and credible at providing it, it goes to the R in the ROI equation and helps load that up for the R to drop. Okay? The third proverb is motivation to action lives in the gap between what I have and what I want or want to avoid. So when we're talking to people about helping them have what we provide, they either are trying to get something they don't currently have, or they're trying to avoid something they don't want to have, and we are helping them do that. And that people are typically 4 times more likely to buy something to help them avoid something they don't want than to get something they do want. So to make that happen, we have to ask questions. I know you've heard it said in sales, you have to ask questions, right? Would you like to know what the best question set ever is? Andrea, I think you told me there was magic in this. I think this is where you found magic. I could be wrong. But the best question set ever, I call the acid equation. We have to drop acid. In the example on the screen, it says CID, but if we add an A in front of it, it simply means agenda, current for current situation, ideal for what the ideal outcome is for them, and the magic happens when you address the delta side of the equation. The delta is simply a measurement in either time or dollars or emotional measurement in their own heart of the difference between what's existent if they had what they wanted, if we were able to provide them what they wanted. Does that make sense? Shaking your head, yes, works. Okay, good. I like it. Chatting in the room saying, yes, that works. It's okay. Although I'm not sure I can see chats. Oh, I can. Very good. All right. So agenda, current, ideal, delta. And while I didn't do this one in 3 minutes, I normally do that and I call it the 3-minute drill. Everything that ever happens in sales happens in this equation that's on the screen right now. It's the single most important. Okay. So any sales problems, by the way, it shows up here. So let's see if I'm seeing any. That's funny. Thank you, Jacob. Sounds like psychedelic framework. Thank you again. If prospects don't trust this, they will not tell us the truth. Isn't that the truth, right? So let me close my chat window. Thank you, guys. And let's go on to the next screen. This is called the values inventory exercise. I walked into a software company and I was helping the sales team get better at what they were doing. And I asked them what they sold. And every answer I got from that sales team was, this is the software we sell. And they talk about the features. We sell this. And they talk about the features. They never understood that what I meant, and I'm sure it's on me, is that I wasn't asking them what we sold. What do we put on a line item invoice? I am asking when somebody buys our software, what are they trying to buy? from us. And I got them and I threw them all in a conference room. I brought some pizza in, and I didn't let them out until we understood the difference between what we sell and what they buy from us. And I created this exercise. I kind of did it on the fly, but I've been using it every client ever since. And so I want you to think about this. If you have a piece of paper in front of you, write down the most likely, the biggest thing that you sell, the most important thing that you provide clients and customers, whatever it is. If you want to volunteer something, that'd be great. If you put something in the chat, maybe we'll talk to it that way. But I want you to put down the single most important thing, the one that's most likely to cause people to pull money out of their pocket and give it to us. Right? So do you all have something? Shake your head if you do. All right. So here's what we want to do with this. We want to look at this special widget, whatever it is, and we want to recognize that when they buy that, they get something for themselves because they bought it from us. So we just want to create a little arrow down to what do they get when they have that? What's in it for them to have that? And when we have an answer there, in this case, I use as an example, cost savings, then we want to ask, what else do they get for that? And I put in, oh, they get time savings, and they get status, and they get other things. They get a solution to the problem, and we can identify that. When we list all the things that I get, there's some things you're going to see. The same words keep popping up over and over, and this is a never-ending conversation. Why? Because if they have cost savings, we can ask, well, if they have cost savings, what do we get for that? If they have time savings, what do we get for that? And we can make this an infinite series of things that happen for them when they spend $100 on us, or whatever the number is. Is that cool? Let's go on from there. When we do that, what happens is you end up, and especially if you do it in a corporate environment, you end up with everybody being on the same page about our value propositions to the world. And if we go forward on that exercise, the next thing we do is we begin to put a circle next to every value that is emotion-based. There's an old line that probably was J. Douglas Edwards in the 1960s who said, people buy emotionally and justify with logic. He taught it to Tom Hopkins, and if you've been around as long as I have, you remember Tommy Hopkins very well as a sales trainer, and he taught it to me. And I thought it was a throwaway line till I thought about it. And if you think about it, people buy emotionally and justify with logic means every time we give something up to get something we want, it was from an emotional perspective. Okay? People buy on emotions. So we put a circle next to everything emotionally based. Then we put a check mark next to every value that is functional and physical. And I'd like to give you about 3 minutes to do your own value inventory exercise real quick. So if you just take a few moments, I'm going to give us maybe 2 minutes, and just to experience it for yourself. Go ahead and start doing that now. Confidence is a great answer. And we've got about another minute. So did we get some good things on our list? Shake your
Yes.
head. Yes. Yay. Okay. Jacob was shaking his head yes. And on Andrea, good. So did you put a little circle next to the values that were emotion based? And did we put a check mark next to the things that were value that are functional or physical based? These will make a difference as we go forward in this conversation. Okay. Let's look at the next one.
Well, that Michael, I mean, when people make more money, it's functional, but it's also highly emotional.
Yes. Right? It can be both. No,
Okay, okay.
right? And what you're going to find as you go through this exercise, and come on, tell me you didn't get that you could branch off forever and ever and ever and create this big mountain of value, right? You're going to find that things repeat and circle back, and it's all normal. So don't be freaked out when you're doing this, and I hope you keep going and do this until you have a huge list, right? And our job is to really recognize that from this list, we can identify the things we hear and the things we know that are most likely to cause our buyers to give us money, to say yes to us. And we want to have those available because those are our primary value propositions. Is it fair to say, if I make more money, then I can buy my wife a new car, and if I buy my wife a new car, she's going to be happy, and if she's happy, I'm going to be happy, right? Is it fair to say that that's a reasonable chain? Okay, and yet if I know, if I go in and talk to him, I say, well, if you get this product, you're going to be happier because your wife's going to be happier because you bought her a new car. I might be reaching, but if that's what turns on the prospect, then good for us. Is that fair? Yes. All right. Let's move on. Let's take this now and start looking at who do we talk to with this information? How do we bring it down to the right people so that we are not sharing what we do with everybody and their brother who doesn't care, but we find the people who care about what we do the most? And to do that, we want to start looking at the physical characteristics of our target prospects. Now, I don't know what anybody sells in here. Well, I know what Connie, I know what you sell, and obviously I know what Doug provides to the world. Andrea, I think you provide coaching based on our short conversation. I'm not sure, but if we look at that, for me, I provide coaching services as well. And I know that I have a very specific identity for my client in number of employees, headquarters, locations. All this data starts helping me break down who are the most important people I want to work with. So I'd invite you to take a photograph of this or get a copy of the printed version of these forms, the slide deck afterwards. We'll talk about how to do that, and be able to write down the prominent physical characteristics or physical profile. And then the next step is to write the niche. We want to identify our targets. You ready? We want to take the primary physical descriptions and put them in one box. We want to take the emotional descriptions and put them in another box. And then we want to look at what brings us the most joy and value to help that client achieve. What's our passion to work with people? I always like working with clients who have a great social agenda for their products. That makes me happy. Got to work for a school curriculum company, and I cannot tell you how much fun I had working with that company and helping them get everything that they needed to be a national company. It worked out very well. Right? But I liked it because I knew that the work I was doing was helping school kids all over the country. So what meets our passion? We want to put that in there. And then we take these emotional description, physical description, and break it down to what meets our passion. And then we can create a new revised physical description. Let me show you how that works. Here it is. This is a copy of one that I did. I named my ideal client Jim. I named him Jim because the guy who did it in this form and fashion was named Jim, and I liked it, so I stole his model. And he just put it on a spreadsheet, and he put the physical descriptions, the emotional descriptions. He brought it down. Now, when I did this, I ended up with choosing the emotional descriptions I wanted to work with the most, and then I put the revised physical description. So really, for me, the revised physical identifies both the emotional and the physical. So my ideal client is probably 28 to 45. He is generating $500 to to $2 million annual revenue. He's got 3 to 10 members. He works in techs or trade or services. He's in the Phoenix metro area. What he wants is more leads, more profit, and more revenue. All of my guys tend to have a constant, never-ending low-grade worry. I know nobody else in the world has a consistent low-grade worry in their life. We don't worry about money because we know we always have money. We don't worry about do our employees or partners like us. We don't worry if we're driven enough or am I an imposter in my game. Connie, you've never seen anybody, any business owner, feel like they're an imposter, have you? No, I know you never have because they just don't do it. Okay. I might be a little facetious with all that. Those are the things that go on for them. And a lot of my guys use education to mask their confidence need and don't necessarily trust their team. So when I find those people, I know they're my ideal client. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. And Michael, you're saying, guys, do you work with gals?
I do. And I say guys in the generic format. And one day I'm going to understand diversity better and be more politically correct, but I haven't quite gotten there yet, Connie. Yes.
You could just say guys and gals.
There you go. And if I don't, you'll help me, right? You'll remind me, won't you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So this is mine. If you grab yours, if you build this for yourself, you will begin to cut out everybody who isn't your client. Why does this matter, you ask? Why does this matter, Michael? I'm so thank you that you asked that question. Here's why it matters. It matters because when we take over, when we create our market dominating position, we can only really be effective with a small segment of the market at a time. I know a great coach who used to say in trainings and stuff that in niches are riches. There was a great line. You may have heard that, Connie, and because really I heard it from you many years ago. And what it does is it takes our conversation from being broad and trying to talk to everybody down to our marketing efforts being brought to a very narrow margin and build our language to those people so we are talking to what matters to them the most. When we do that, we get a much higher percentage of that market share. And once we have that higher percentage of market share, we can shift our ideal client profile and get another market share and build that as well. So we build this description, we write language for them, and I think it's just about time. Let me see. Oh, I forgot about innovation. How important is innovation in building a product out in the world? Everybody said, wow, that's really important, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Yes, it really is. All right. Oh, Jacob, I see that you wrote there was an acronym. Did I get it? The ACID acronym?
No, I confused the gals. I thought that might have been an acronym.
Ah, no, that was not an acronym.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Connie, I'm just coming up on your questions now. I got it. All right, we're all good. Innovation. So innovation means we are distinguishing our company from every other company that vies for the dollars we're after. Innovation means we're going to be a little bit different and more focused on what matters to our ideal client. And really all there are these 4 questions to ask yourself. What do they want specifically? What does our ideal client profile want specifically? Then we look at what we do now and ask ourselves the question, what could we do? What could we do to make it more pleasing or environmentally friendly? In some places, you might see a chiropractic office or even a car dealer burn scented candles because it creates a better environment. It becomes part of their market dominating position to have a more pleasing environment. How will they benefit? Patients or clients will feel more at home, will feel more comfortable and warmer if they smell the candles burning that smell like baking cookies. Does that make sense? Yes, Michael, it does. Okay, thank you. So the innovation question is always, what could we do different from our peers that make a difference for our prospects? And then identify how will they benefit? Because that language will set us apart in a big bad way.
And that is so hard for some people you know, it's a competitive advantage when it's a saturated market. So, I mean, that's a whole different program, but just to get
right?
really, really, really creative and innovative.
In many years ago, there was I was in a group called Sales Pros, like an old group versus one that I had created. There was an old group, and in that group was a guy named Dan McGinnis, who was a realtor. And Dan had orange suits made up, and he went around as the pumpkin man. Now, there was no shortage of real estate agents back in that day. There still is not a shortage of real estate agents, but Dan was distinct because he was the pumpkin man, and every Halloween he went around handing out pumpkins, right? That was creative. What you are saying is right. In a commodity market, the primary difference is us. So if you look at car dealers, you're going to buy the same Chevrolet at 15 different dealers around town. The primary competitive advantage is in who the dealer is being when we go there and talk to them. Does that make sense?
That's
Yeah.
a very good point.
Right? Okay, competitive advantage, yes. So if you were quite right, Connie, sometimes this is the hardest work we do. Sometimes this is the most brain power we burn. And this happens because when we do this, it's because the longer term payoff is worth the short term effort it takes to get there. Let's move on. With this information, we are now in a place to start building our 30-second elevator pitch. So my guess is you now have 2 or 3 things identified from your value inventory exercise that are primary value propositions you bring to your clients. Let me give you a very comfortable and simple way to do a 30-second elevator pitch. Do you know how some business owners struggle emotionally and struggle to get more leads in on a regular basis and don't feel very happy about their profit at all? What we do is help them find their footing to be powerful and strong with their customers and their staff. We help them gain more profit. I can help them get 3 times more leads, and I can help them find $50,000 profit. I can do that in an hour with them. And so we solve that problem. So the format there is, do you know how? And then what we do is.
I like it because you get them shaking their head like, oh yeah, I know how. So they're in a listening position.
Yes. And nothing in what I said there is salesy. The presumption of this is you get asked at a networking event and you've asked them, what do they do? And they're going to ask you, what do you do? And then we can say, do you know how? And if we do our job well, they're going to say, how do you do that? And now we're off to the races. Does that work?
That's
Yes.
a really good reminder.
Right? Okay. And that, do you know how? What we do is just a very simple, you can do it 15 different ways. That's a very simple way to make our 30-second intro work. We can do it in 10 seconds. For business owners, what we do is this, and this, and you're done. Sometimes 10 seconds is appropriate, sometimes 30. And really, they're all just based on summarizing what's our value proposition number 1, what's our value proposition number 2, what's our value proposition number 3, which can be thought of as bait or magnets to bring people into us. If you do the work to target your prospect effectively and you speak to what matters to them, these value propositions not only attract the right person to you because they are targeted specifically, but people who are not interested in that don't get engaged with you. They don't ask you, how do you do that? They say, oh, that's nice. And now you get to move on. And you've saved a whole bunch of time chasing people who are not legitimate prospects. I'm now just looking around to see who all's in the game with us still. All right. Jacob, it's always good when I switch pages and you're there. So thank you. Okay. Will this help you create a more effective 30-second elevator pitch?
Oh, big time. Michael, at the Global Chamber, there are opportunities for people to introduce themselves. And wow, it's just so powerful to be able to get people to lean in. And I think that that's a way for people to be more effective, and for people to identify, like, oh, I really want to have a further conversation with XYZ.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things I have found, Connie, everybody, is when I work with new clients, when I work with people who are business owners but not really very experienced in sales, they don't know how to summarize their value propositions in succinct manner that is valuable to the people they're talking to. So they get into these conversations and they struggle and they say different things all the time and they're not clear and nobody knows how to process that. As that helps me. The people that they're talking about don't know how it works for them.
Well, and there's no excuse anymore. Jacob put up here, use generative AI to help brainstorm.
Right?
There's no reason to struggle with it anymore
Right?
when we have a formula.
And you've already identified what those most motivational value propositions are. So, yay for us. All right, just note, relate specifically to the target need or pain. It doesn't ask for anything. You're not selling. You're just telling people what you want. Invites a qualified prospect. It excludes the non-qualified prospect. And it's really narrowed specifically to your niche. Okay, now we're going to talk about more fun stuff. There are 3 primary steps to a good sales process: lead generation, lead qualification and education, and lead conversion. These are the 3 primary. Lead generation means people are raising their hand and say, I want to know more because of something you did. Lead qualification education is you're talking to somebody, but they want to know who you are. They want to know what value you bring to them. This is where trust, credibility, and interest matter the most, because they are learning to trust you. They are learning to qualify you as you're qualifying them. And they're understanding how what you do matters to them. And then you move to the lead conversion step, which is simply how do you ask them to buy? So we're going to talk about this real quick. The distribution channel is what we call where the sale gets made, or lead conversion. The strategy is where education and qualification occur, and tactics are how prospects are found. Most of us see something online. They say, hey, do this podcast. Hey, do this blog. Hey, buy my product. And they're all tactics-based things that they're doing that help people find leads to convert. But it's a mistake to start at the tactics level. The first thing we want to do is build them in reverse order. How are we going to close this conversation? Who's going to be responsible for it, or how are we going to do it? How are we going to help them learn what is in it for them, the education piece, and does it match what they need? And then the tactics are how prospects are found. Starting with tactics first, waste money, time, and you lose control of your process pretty quickly. The distribution channel, or how you convert people, there's 7 primary, and these are them. Most of us will follow a direct sales process or distribution channel, but you can do it phone sales, you can do it online, events, trade shows and stuff, whatever it is. Pick one and identify it. Then we want to identify our marketing strategies to educate, engage, and qualify the prospects. And these are a number of models we can use. Advertising, we can do it with point of sale materials. We can do it with database marketing and direct mail pieces or email pieces. There's a number of ways we can give them more information. That's marketing. And from a sales perspective, we can use sales strategies, the direct sales call, or at events or networking or whatnot. The marketing tactics that are out there are like 77 marketing tactics. This is a small list. And there are the same sales strategies that can be used also. Now, I don't think you're reading every one of these line items. Don't mind me, I just don't think you're doing it. So when I say that I want you to have the printout of the slide deck, I do, and I will send it to you, or Connie can send it to you if you ask for it at the end of this conversation. Cool? Yes, that would be cool. All right, let's move on. The next step we want to get into is having a flow chart of our sales process. Single most important thing, I say this, if you're a business owner and you have a sales process, you can fix what's broken in not enough revenue. If you don't have a sales process, it's very hard to identify where you're not working. I had this conversation with a database professional and explained to them that if I see that in my buyer journey, there is a place that's where all my customers fall out, clearly that identifies where my buyer's journey needs some work or the execution of it needs work. Does that make sense? This is a very simple flow chart that references the three primary elements of a sales process or buyer's journey. That is the lead generation, the lead conversion, qualification, and then the last one is the conversion. So just for example, say you got something from the Global Chamber and they said, we're going to have this webinar on global sales. Come and join us. And you said, oh, that sounds like fun. I want to do that. And in that, then you came on a call. And during that thing, you said, wow, that's very cool. If you got an invite to a webinar afterwards, if that had value for you, you'd say yes to it. If it didn't have value, you'd say, no, thank you. And maybe then be invited to participate in a drip campaign where you got more information on what was there, or you would get disqualified. If you said, yes, sure, I'd love to learn more about it, then you'd get a Zoom invite and invited to that thing, and then you'd be on a Zoom call. You could participate in a Zoom call. Both this webinar and this Zoom call are part of lead education and qualification. Does that make sense? And then a direct sale if you were engaged, if you had a conversation afterwards. And all of those items, if you're not interested in any of them, you'd either get invited to participate in a drip campaign or be disqualified as not capable or not effective for you. That's a process. But I did this in a PowerPoint slide, and I can make a 5-page process for most any organization. My invitation is you do it fairly simply, but cover the most important points of your own sales process. And in each phase, have the language and the conversation prepared and understood and memorized before you got into that phase. Does that work for you? Say, yes, that works.
So Michael, just recently I had a marketer tell me that a webinar is to wow and not how.
Yes.
And so, but I mean, I really think in a webinar, we need to tell people how so that they see the value, just like you shared about the value proposition. What are your thoughts on that?
Every relationship in the world is dependent on trust, credibility, and interest. Until they've crossed the threshold of value and you tell them what you do, you have to be careful that it doesn't sound like you're selling them. That denies or destroys the trust and credibility you've built up. If I share with you the wow and you want more, then I can invite you to the next event and it's attractive to you. If I tell you how you do it, then it satisfies the question in your mind. You may not be nearly as interested. So if I were going to give you the perfect customer equation, the marketing equation or conversion equation, I would give you a headline and I would give you a promise to solve the problem from the headline. And then in the education pieces, I would give you more. But until I have a chance to talk to you face to face in my model, I don't really know if I can bring you value. And I want to have a conversation. I want to have an acid conversation with my prospects so I can ask them. The agenda question is, what's most important to you to understand from this conversation? And when they tell me what they're really trying to get at it, now I know their buying motives. And then when I ask them the current ideal delta questions, I can understand how important that is. So when you say webinars are to wow them, not how them, it's trying to distinguish between education and bringing them value, but losing the sale to a point where you can ask the closing question effectively.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Did that make sense to you? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to double check that I was getting through. So this becomes your marketing funnel, or that particular piece marketing funnel. This is, as a business leader, this is one of the more important things we can do, just so we know we're building the right language in the right place. Okay, this is pretty much towards the end of the conversation. I went very fast, and so I want to make sure that you have access to this value. Connie, you say that the Global Chamber has this on their YouTube site so that they can watch this again, all that they want, right? My email address again is michael@revenuekinetics.com. If you send me a note, I will send out the slide deck in a PDF format. And if you would like more information, you can get my free book. I promised you that I didn't promise you. Here's a free book. I would love for you to have a free book. This is the free book. It's on my website. To get it, if you would like it, all you have to do is go to revenuekinetics.com, click this button right here, and then you can have the book. And not only that, but if you like this material, I have dozens of emails that you will get over time, spaced out, more information for getting more effective at selling. Okay? And that's really my big conversation with you on what, hopefully I delivered everything that I had promised you. Now, Connie, would be a great time to ask some questions.
Okay, so yes, so if you would just go off screen share and please share any questions that you have for Michael.
And if not, I have some questions for all y'all.
I was going to let Jacob go first.
You're on
man.
mute. There you
The
go.
spot. Yeah, this has been a major excellent learning experience, and the sales, Connie and I talked about the sort of the sales that not so much that I do anymore, but how I sort of broke in was through like social impact and fundraising. And I think that there's a lot of synergy between those two, and it's also, I think that fundraisers and people in social impact could use this knowledge to really help optimize their work and find new opportunities. Have you done any work with like nonprofit fundraisers or social impact?
Not in a major way. I used to be a participant in New Pathways for Youth, which is for disadvantaged kids and provides big brothers, big sisters like mentorship. And so I did some work with them. I did some programs with them, but nothing to a great extent. Just so you know, it's important to me to make sure that I give back in some form or fashion. And so if you knew a nonprofit that had a social impact, I would be happy to be invited to participate in helping them in any way I can.
Awesome. No, thank you. I just, one of my like side quests in life is really to do as much connecting of private sector with nonprofit sector, or phrase that Cesar and I heard yesterday, social profit, which I like the idea of looking at it from a social enterprise, or looking at a revenue generating aspect of social impact. No, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher, are you there? Could you comment on what you've heard here today?
Yes, thank you, Doug. I think that what was presented was wonderful. It actually took me back to when I was in the Air Force and working with recruiters. I think sometimes in sales, identifying with who you're talking to is so important. And I like the techniques that you showed us. I'm looking forward to actually seeing the handout. And then I don't know, I have this feel, felt, found principle that's in my mind. And Michael, you know what that is, but I know how you feel. I felt that way once before, but I found through, experiencing the Global Chamber that I was able to move my business and ramp it up and be global. And so sometimes the feel, felt, found principle is a good one too for sales.
I learned that about 40 years ago from Tom Hopkins, Feel, Felt, Found, and I still use it to this day. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you. I
Great.
see that Andrea has a question.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for that. That's been, like I said, I think I've used some of your work in the past, and it's been amazing. Um, so here's my challenge. I'm moving from not just one-on-one coaching in the areas that I do, but also train the trainer. And I need to refresh my site. And when I'm looking at that overall value proposition, it's hard to narrow the focus when I do so many different things, and most of my niche is psychographic rather than demographic. So when I was looking at your 30-second elevator pitch, I kind of came down to what is really at the core of whether it's a leader I'm coaching or it's a speaker I'm coaching or whatever, what it is. And I guess the fear I have is, and I know you've heard this a million times, because it's psychographic rather than demographic, I'm going to be leaving out a whole lot of people if I just come into this one little focused niche. So I'm just curious, when you're moving your focus, how you address that.
Yeah, happily. I mean, I would address it happily, and I'll share this with you. Say the total target market for you is 100,000 people, but you've just asked me to narrow that down to 5,000 of those 100,000 people.
Mhm.
And I would say, yes, do that. And I would say that because once you build your language to that 5,000 group of people, then when you speak to them, you're going to get a much higher percentage of those 5,000 people, right? So then when you move to the next niche, and there's another 5,000 people there, you do it again, you're going to get a much higher percentage of that 5,000 group of people. And then you can move through all the different places that make up your 100,000 people, total addressable market.
But how do you do that on a psychographic level? Because I mean, it's not like I'm looking for so and so people in Phoenix, Arizona that are between 25 and 48. And I mean, it's not, and they're not in particular industries, and they're not, it's much more about their how when you talk about how it's important how you do something, and you mentioned who I know, Dan McGinnis, who does the pumpkin thing.
Yeah.
That it's not, I do focus on how I do it. I mean, they would hire me probably because of how I do it and what my, approach is, but it's not a certain group of people. You know what I mean? Even the people I've coached, I can look at and say, well, here's who usually comes to me. I can look at that and draw some, but I also get one-offs, in very different areas.
Andrea, you know I love you, don't you?
Well, I didn't, but it's good to know.
Okay. I used to get to hang out with John Maxwell, and every time he was going to rearrange somebody's thinking, he would start with that. So I just
Okay,
wanted you to know
great.
I love it.
I'm up for it. I'm up for having my thinking rearranged.
Okay. Where does a chunk of your psychographic customers hang out? What's their community? How would you find them? Are they in a Facebook group? Where would they collect en masse? Can you help me understand some of who they were?
Well, I work with many CEOs,
Yeah,
work with senior management, I work with salespeople.
yes,
Because what I do is about speaking and authentic leadership. So these people have to either speak one-on-one with people in groups and meetings and board meetings in front of audiences, or it's just they're dealing with day-to-day leadership issues.
yeah. So when you say they're speaking in all these different environments, then are you coaching on speaking or being comfortable speaking?
Mhm.
I got it. So if I were doing this, I would reach out to CEOs in a geographic territory, say all of Phoenix. And by the way, I have a search set up for this in my Sales Navigator, CEOs in the Phoenix area. And I would be messaging or communicating with them through LinkedIn my value propositions.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yes, I'll just leave it there because I don't want to take up more of your time.
Well, and then I have one thought too, Andrea, as far as I work with salespeople and sales managers. So on my website, I have two different areas. Whoever they are, they can go to here or go to here. And so you said authentic leadership, and then the speaking, that's a possibility. So thank you. And then I'm looking at the clock here, and I know we want to wind down, and Michael already told me he has a hard stop. And so, Michael, thank you. You've refreshed and reinvigorated me to do a better job in introducing myself at global chamber meetings, because I know what I've been saying is clever, but it's not really landing well. So I'm going to change that thanks to you. And then next month on May 9th, Simon Friedman, let me see, what's his name? Simon Warman Fried is going to really help salespeople who are asked to provide proposals. And so we're not in the proposal writing business, but how many times do we get caught in, send me a proposal, and it goes into black cyber world and we never hear back? So put that on your calendar for May 9th, the same time, and we'll really zero in on that. So with that said, Michael, thank you, thank you. And then Doug, do you have any parting comments or anything to say?
I love Michael. Michael, your whole approach. We've known each other for a few years, and you're unwavering in the science of sales. There were a couple things that I took away, and then there were a couple more things that I think you emphasized today that are just so critically important. One, which we didn't really cover, but I think you covered, is the difference between sales and marketing. And some of that was in Andrea's question, which I felt more like a marketing question. Like, how do you kind of do the prospecting pipeline, but not so much about the sales part, which you were going right to, the emotional part, and how do you get that all set up? And that's what you're so good at. The difference between, there is a difference between marketing and sales. And then the other aspect that I think also came out in Andrea's question was the concept that we see a lot at Global Chamber, where someone comes in and says things like, well, everybody's my customer. And so their marketing and their sales approach is that general kind of wispy stuff that never really ends up being like hitting the mark. And
Correct.
Your response and your point was really right on, is it's liberating to narrow it down to even one person and explain that, because if you can find that one great person that's really your best client and speak to that person both in marketing and sales, that's going to create a lot more interest, or at least that's what I heard you say.
Yes, that's exactly so. Right?
Yeah.
You'll be in alignment. You know, if the glove does not fit, you must acquit. But if the glove fits, they must buy. Right? If you have a value for it, it's hand and glove. And so if you speak to that, you're further ahead.
Yes.
I love that. I also love what you always have emphasized, that this process allows those of us either that are engineers or have other disabilities, which I have several of them, where you start to feel like selling is a bad thing, when in fact, for that right person, for you, and providing them some benefit in their life and their business, it's a good thing. You want to find that it's a positive thing that you're doing, and it's certainly how I feel about Global Chamber, and I know you feel that way about sales. So thanks for being that person for us.
I would love to share this last thought because of what you just said there. A lot of people don't like sales. A lot of people don't like salespeople. But every one of us cares about other people in a big way. And I would invite us to consider that the skills of sales are really the skills of leadership, relationship, communication, and then commerce. When you learn this, you are working deeply in the benefit of all people.
Yes, that's a way great. You put the bow on the present.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll get these slides to you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Connie. Thanks, everybody.
Bye bye.